Hello and welcome to this special edition of the Intellect podcast, in which we are going to be talking about the Saudi Vision 2030 and the transformation of trade. My name's David Henner, and I'm delighted to welcome three distinguished panelists today. First of all, a man who needs no introduction, Osama bin Saleh Bukhari, head of the ICC Banking Commission here in Saudi Arabia. Special guest. Thank you very much for joining us today, Osama. And also two other speakers from Intellect, Raju Singha, who is the head of trade finance at Intellect, and also Amit Maru, head of supply chain finance at Intellect. Osama, if I could start with you, please, just a very general question about how you've seen the business of trade finance evolving in the kingdom over the last few years, and any particular observations you have about recent trends and drivers in the market.
First of all, thank you for having me, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. People have been doing trade all their lives. I mean, since God created
the second oldest profession.
Yes, exactly. That and another profession. True. So trade has always been there, especially if you talk about the western region of Saudi Arabia, mainly Jeddah, because it was the main port, and because of the pilgrimage and the Umrah. So I would say the religious aspect of people coming in and out, that would always come with trade, because they would need to exchange goods or exchange different I would say means of living. I mean, we're talking about way before there was like actual trade finance or anything like that. So yeah, we have been always in the heart of it, as in we've always try to do the best we can with the technology or the instruments that were available. Now, fast forward to this time, and as you know, which is not directly related to trade finance, but the RTGS system, which is the real-time gross settlement that was created by our central bank it was live in 1997. And we're talking about 97, where a lot of countries didn't even hear about RTGS. So this is how advanced, we always aim to be. And of course, trade is something that is needed because, originally, because, why LCs were created, and we all know that, is just because of the trust factor between countries. So I'm a company in Saudi, I would like to import something from whatever country it is. So, we need to open an LC to be able to, to do that, because, there's no trust really. We don't know each other. Once that trust element is there, we move to open accounts and other stuff. And that's what we see the trend on a global scale. The trade versus trade finance. Trade finance is extremely small when it comes to the global trade. But that small bit, it's still in the billions of dollars. So it's still significant. And that's why we need to do a lot of evolution in that. Saudi is no different than any other market. We're in the heart of it. And recently, SAMA is leading an initiative to digitalize the entire trade process. Of course, being part of the ICC, we're very much in the middle of it, because DSI, the Digital Standard Initiative, which is based in Singapore, is really setting the standard on a global scale. And we are in touch with Singapore, Saudi, and the central bank to build this capability. And this, of course, would require a lot of legislative changes, not just business processes.
Exactly, yes. Raju, perhaps following on from Osama's opening remarks, what can you tell us about how Intellect is positioning itself to address the market here in the kingdom, and to take advantage of the opportunities for growth as presented by the Vision 2030?
First of all, thank you for hosting this. If you look at Intellect today, we are an enterprise, great solution provider for wholesale banking, and we have industry-specific solutions. And if you look at from what Saudi 2030 vision is, they want to get into other aspects of business other than oil, right? So oil has been the focus till now, but now they are diversifying into multiple, lines of industry. And one of them is obviously construction, your pharma, tourism, investment into, infrastructure, IT, And where we come in over here is we have very specialized solution for this industry. And if you look at trade as a whole, as Osama was saying, so it's a billions of dollar of business. So to be precise, it was like 62 billion is what the revenue of trade banks were, and they are expected to grow, not at a high rate, but it will still be on that part. And what we are missing is around 2 trillion business which SMEs bring in, which is not yet captured in this trade by banks. So if you look at from an Intellect perspective, we are working on solutions which will help bank to tap this untapped market, which is driving SMEs, and doing that in a very efficient and seamless way. And that's where we bring in our, if you say, AI capabilities, which are obviously helping bank to build autonomous and cognitive, solution into it. And by doing so, I think when we talk about Saudi, this will enhance and fasten the entire process of adoption, which is currently lacking in terms of given the old technologies that we have in most banks, because technology is, changing very fast. And we as a technology provider, I think we can do way better now given our emac.ai architecture.
And Amit, perhaps I could position the same sort of question to you from a supply chain finance perspective. Clearly, supply chain finance solutions are designed not only to help businesses optimize their working capital, but also improve cash flow. But of course, at the same time, there are some elements of supply chain finance products that are prohibited in Islamic law, interest and uncertainty and things like that. So can you tell us a bit about how Intellect is addressing the growth in that segment of the market?
Sure. First of all, thank you for this opportunity, David and others. Islamic SCF is obviously a very interesting area for us because SCF is growing in the Islamic markets, whether we talk about Malaysia or we talk about Middle East or other Islamic countries. The way we have sort of navigated this entire area is we have tried to meet as many banks as possible in each of these geographies, and we are trying to learn, continuously learn the different product structures that are out there. Okay? And what we have noted is there are product structures like Tawarruk and Murabaha and Buy and Dahan, variations of it. And we have also noted that each bank has a different way to think about supply chain finance, Islamic supply chain finance, right? And so it's important for us to be able to provide the right technology that the bank needs to cater to their Islamic SCF market. Now, from a technology perspective, one thing we are very clear is there is no such thing as a compliant technology or a not so compliant technology, because technology is Sharia neutral. Okay. What we believe, looking at all the use cases that we have seen so far, is what banks need is a platform that is built on a low-code framework so that they can define their workflows and they can define their rules and they can define the accounting and reportings the way they want to cater to their structures. And also, of course, the technology has to be an open banking, API-based, microservices-based, because there's going to be a lot of integrations that will have to be done with brokers, and it's important to get the information exchanged properly and accounted for properly.
Absolutely spot on.
Just like to add to that, what he was saying is, if you look at how technology plays very important role in this is, now again coming back to the Saudi market. Yeah. Now, if you have to get into SME sector, what you have to do is you have to fasten up your onboarding process, right? That's a main game changer, because today we take a lot of time in getting more suppliers onboarded. I think what AI can do over here is fasten up that entire process. You can onboard faster, you can do the KYCs faster, you can do your credit assessment faster. And that is where what Amit was saying, technology is a facilitator over here.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And actually, what you're talking about is already implemented. So, the identity theft issues that, we are all afraid of is the single most, I would say, important aspect of making digital world happen. Because if I'm sure the entity that is behind that computer, whether it's an individual or a company, if I'm sure that they are who they claim to be, then I have nothing to worry about. So that's the gist of it. Yep. And I believe our country really, with all the government APIs that we've done, it's just like, as you know, we are actually now rated as the number one in the whole world when it comes to government API and in terms of exposing all these APIs to fulfill exactly what you're saying. So today you can actually onboard 100% on a digital basis, whether it's an individual or SMEs, because the vast majority of SMEs would be single, authorized or single owner. But even when it comes to corporates and complex structures, we have already gone through a lot of automation there with whether it's the Ministry of Commerce or with the other government services.
Osama, I'd like to continue this thread around the SME segment. Both Raju and Amit have alluded to the SME segment, and that is one of the core elements of Vision 2030 is providing active support to the SME market segment. And we know from data published by the Asian Development Bank, primarily, the so-called trade finance funding gap has actually increased, right? From, $1.7 trillion in 2020. It's now, I actually did a session with Stephen Beck from ADB in Manila recently, and he told me now the latest estimate is $2.5 trillion. So it's actually gone up. And of course, a lot of that gap does relate to the SME market segment. And as I say, it is one of the key elements of Vision 2030. If you look at the profile of the Saudi market, there's some, 900,000 SMEs, it's estimated, in Saudi, contributing currently something like 20% of GDP, whereas compared to other leading economies around the world, that figure could go up to 50, 60, 70%, right?
Absolutely.
So what do you think needs to be done here across the whole ecosystem really to help SMEs make a tangible contribution to a thriving economy?
I mean, you're absolutely spot on, David. It's any economy, for it to really thrive and continue, is with the growth of the SMEs, absolutely. I mean, yes, you can have your corporates or the big companies, yeah, but then you have that concentration risk. So, but you really want it to be diverse. And because of that, whether it's at Vision 2030 level or even the central bank, we have done a lot to support the SMEs in terms of putting rules and putting ways to make life easier for the SMEs. However, that funding gap is still genuinely there, and that's because of the banking sector.
Right.
Being an ex-banker myself, and I know that we are only to be blamed. I mean, I'm not going to shy away from that, because if you think about it, the amount of money that goes to the SMEs is extremely, extremely thin. Because even when we talk about that, about 20% or plus of the funding is going to SMEs, it's not really no thanks to the banking sector, but it's really thanks to the government because of the kafala programs and the others. Yeah. So they're government, guaranteed. And I also don't blame the banks because of the associated risk, the unavailability of proper data and other stuff for me to assess an SME. So how do I make sure that that SME is, I would say, credit worthy? If we continue doing it the way we're doing it today, we'll never reach a goal. So it really needs to be like how we dealt with the retail side. We made it into programs rather than assessing every credit file like we do with big transactions. That needs to be done, and I believe the banks are doing this. And what the government has done, they've created the SME bank as well, because they could see that, again, that needs a lot of push with the government. And that's what we always do. In Saudi Arabia, we have a government that we trust, that really does what's good for the ecosystem. They give you that push to be able to work with it. And then once I'm used to a company or an SME, and then they've been, I do their collection properly and everything is smooth, then I can be more comfortable in extending more credit. But that anchor, which is the government support, is always there to be able for the banks to extend that credit. So I think, it's just a matter of, starting the whole ecosystem to start working. So once the machine is oiled properly and starts moving, then it will really, it will be like a snowball effect. And I truly believe that, the growth of the SME business will be definitely very soon exponentially growing. Yeah, especially with Raju and Amit has mentioned, with the use of AI, it will really help both sides. And we've seen so many use cases and the credit side. It really has helped reduce the cycle and improve the quality of credit. So the assessment can really be genuinely enhanced with using AI methodology to be able to extend this credit to the SMEs and other corporates.
Just perhaps continuing that thread then, Raju and Amit, but Raju first, about how technology can be deployed to help the banks address these issues, and what specific elements of the technology. Osama has referenced artificial intelligence, which is one constituent part of that, but where do you see technology playing a role in helping the banks address this?
Just to add to that, what Osama was saying, actually SME employs 50% of your workforce today across the globe. Okay, now if you think the SMEs grow, which means your 50% of workforce, lifestyle grows, look at the impact that it have on the economy. Like, it will obviously start, doubling itself very soon. So that's why I'm saying the focus on SME is very important right now, and that's what most government are doing. Now, to come in terms of technology, how it can facilitate, I think digitization is a very important component over here. Now, getting the right data to make the right decision, that's the key. And the right data will only happen when you have your entire process digitized. Now, it does not start or end with the bank. It actually starts from how that entire journey of that SME starts, like from maybe taking a permission from the government to having his ID or credential established, to shipping, to tracking the shipping, the bank, when the banking happens, that part of is digitized. And when the fund is going out, that part is digitized. And this data going back to the credit agency and to the government. When you integrate all of this through a technology of digitization, I think that's where you will have benefits coming in very fast.
I think, banks perhaps feel a bit overwhelmed by the availability of technology, different options. If you were a bank here today, how would you view your investment priorities, if I can put it that way? What should determine the first thing that you need to invest in?
Yes. So if you look at investment priority from a banker perspective, as I said, digitization is my first priority, because I want to make sure I'm capturing the data right first time and using it all across. Now, if you look at trade, there was a report which came out from McKinsey. Okay, it was somewhere in 2015, which says that every single data point that we captured today is actually captured 20 times across different phases of the life cycle of a transaction.
Yes.
Right. So look at the amount of efficiency loss that we do in this entire process. Now, as a banker, if you ask me, I want to put the best technology so that I capture it once and I use it across the life cycle. And to me, right now, I think generative AI gives us that capability to do that. Now, obviously, we hear about OCR, which is a previous generation technology was. It had its own limitations. But with Gen AI, I think we are hugely ahead of that curve. That's one item I would obviously invest in as a banker. The second thing I would obviously invest in is how do I, distribute my risk? Because when I am getting into SME or corporate, distributing my risk becomes very necessary for me, because the faster I distribute, I can cater to more clients, and the more clients I cater to, which increases my probability of running a highly profitable business. And third, not the least, is obviously sustainability. That's key to everything today.
Okay, you're jumping ahead a little bit in terms of the flow, but we'll come back. I'd like to come back to the subject of AI, and I'd like to come back to the subject of sustainability. Before we do that, Amit, anything to add from a supply chain perspective, perhaps, to Raj's comments?
Right. So when we talk about AI in this space, we think about trade first, because trade is very document intensive. There are so many parties, there are so many complications, but there is a lot of application of AI that we are increasingly discovering in the supply chain finance area as well. Just a moment ago, we were talking about onboarding distributors. There are banks in Asia who are investing millions of dollars worth of resources just in creating credit approval notes for distributors. That's a really big effort that's going out there. And Osama alluded to, the data itself is now becoming publicized, right, or public. You have bureau data, you have the GST data, you have bank data, all of that. So the data is all there. And now when we bring in the LLM's analytical capabilities, along with its natural language drafting capabilities, okay, and we bring the whole power of the wider internet, the credit approval notes can be created much better than what it is being today using AI. That's the number one use case for AI that comes to mind. As we go along in the supply chain finance process, this same data that AI is using here can also be used to promote the supply chain finance programs. Like, for example, AI can literally tell you that, look, for such and such segment of suppliers, you need to send this marketing message to get their participation up, because it has access to all the data of the suppliers, and it really understands the profiles of these suppliers, and it has the ability to suggest the right marketing message that will move the needle for such suppliers. And then, of course, there is this big area of customer service, where conversational bots are now coming up, and conversational bots can be very simple. A customer wants to know the status of the transaction, punch in the transaction reference number, it can give you status. But conversational bots can do much more wonderful things. Like, for example, a relationship manager is going to meet an anchor, for example, a big anchor, right? Aramco. And they're sitting in a car and they want to generate a report of how the Aramco program is doing. They can just say, okay, I am the relationship manager. Can you give me a report of how the Aramco program is doing? And the Gen AI generated report will tell them what's the variation month on month, quarter on quarter, which suppliers are performing, which suppliers are not really performing, and therefore what can Aramco contribute to improve the participation of the program overall. Okay, all of that is used to be human intensive. It will probably require human intervention even now, but AI can greatly assist in all of these use cases.